Seated by Bud Collins, Jarvis Ross, followed by Scott Chipman.
Council President Young and council members, I applaud all of your deliberations on this very sensitive issue. I would just like to add the following comments for public record. First, the thoughtful public supports regulation, but beware the unintended consequences of causing all the current dispensaries to shut down for any extended period of time. Remember what happened during prohibition of alcohol. It became an invitation to gangsters to move in and speakeasies to proliferate with the aid of then corrupt politicians and some policemen. Regulations should not exceed those required of a combination of pharmacies and liquor stores, otherwise the city could face multiple lawsuits. Parents have a responsibility to educate children about the potential harmful effects of any drug, including alcohol. Medical marijuana, according to reliable testimony, provides relief to severe pain that other medicines do not. Therefore, its location should not be any more restricted than a pharmacy on one hand, but should be limited to numbers in any given location. Schools and parks require restrictions of at least 1,000 feet. With conformance to other regulations, the proximity to a church of any kind should not be a restriction. This is contradictory. Just as there are caveats with regards to drugs, alcohol, and cigarette advertising, so should that apply to medical marijuana advertisements. Again, don't cause all the dispensaries to close down during a reasonable period of permit application. We don't need an upswing in the trafficking of illegal guns to Mexico and return for their illegal drugs.
Followed by Judy Strang.
Three speakers. We weren't organized to know that this was going to be pulled. I need time for three speakers.
You're going to have to move forward. We're not going to take it from the audience like that. We just got to keep moving.
All right. There are now over 30 delivery services. You do not, there's plenty of access. You do not need a storefront to work cooperatively. The lawyer for the opposition clearly documented how these businesses will try to get around the law. That's exactly why this council should keep these regulations and make them stronger. San Diegans for Safe Neighborhoods are in favor of prohibiting storefront operations. Thank you for passing a strong ordinance. However, we need several issues emphasized. No grandfathering, no cooperatives should be allowed in zones where residents are allowed, a thorough audit system, so that we know where the marijuana is coming from. We agree it should not be coming from cartels, and nonprofit status should be up for interpretation. It's not up for interpretation. They should be registered federally and state. And remember this fellow right here, the driver, Ron Taylor, in La Jolla ran over 4 people, 3 young people, under the influence of marijuana. He said, somebody stole my car, I wasn't driving. That's just an example. Motor Magazine indicates what this is about. This is Medical Marijuana Magazine. Money and marijuana are synonymous. We have 170 of these dispensaries operating now. They all need to be closed. We need an effective process for closing them. Dana Point is charging $2,500 a day for any dispensary that does not close down. We need something as effective as that. Thank you very much.
Judy Strang, who has time seated by Ken Riddle. Judy Strang, followed by Robert Hall, followed by Robert McNamara.
Yes, good morning, Judy Strang. I just want to say, as a business owner in San Diego, I'm somewhat surprised that it's sort of disrespectful to businesses that you wouldn't have to come into compliance, that you could just hang around until you did. And I really think it's important that we consider the businesses here in our city who are trying to operate within the law, and don't wait 2 years before you get yourself up to speed. I'd also like to say on behalf of those who work with young people, though the NIDA results show up until about 2004 that marijuana use, among other things, was decreasing among youth, it has steadily increased, and now in 2010, particularly over 2008, we've seen a 10% increase, not only across the nation, but in this county. And I think we've shared with you before the San Diego Unified School District Healthy Kids surveys to show you that. I also wanted you to know that we really respect your right to use your land use regulations to protect all of us. And we now have 200 cities across the state of California who actually have bans in place around dispensaries. But particularly, and in closing, I express my concern that the intent of the law was for caregivers and patients to gather collectively together in a non-profit, gracious, closed-circuit manner, where caregivers would be exactly what the law describes, which is some person who consistently provides caregiving to a qualified patient, independent of any assistance in taking or providing medical marijuana at or before she has assumed responsibility for assisting with medical marijuana, and that this caregiver should assume responsibility for housing, health, or safety of this qualified patient, and that caregiving is an activity that occurs together in a qualified manner. You don't go to a retail setting for it to occur. Those caregivers come to you. Thank you.
Robert Hall, followed by Robert McNamara, followed by Tom Hetherington, followed by Barbara Gordon.
Hi, thanks for your time. The fellow earlier, I don't want to misquote him, but I think he said there's, we'll use 70,000 patients without access for over a year. When the voters passed Prop 215, it was about compassion. It was about people being able to provide care to other people. 2 weeks ago after the last meeting, I saw one group of people out there. I walked through the group saying, where are we going to get our marijuana? People on the other side are saying, how are they going to get their marijuana? It's called a phone, people. You call up the person to whom you provide care. You say, what do you need? Instead of spending money on advertising, magazines, and rent, you spend the money on gas, you drive to their house, you make sure they get what they need. We do not need the storefronts. The problem with the storefronts has been well documented by the police and by the people talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert McNamara, followed by Tom Hetherington, followed by Barbara Gordon, followed by Thomas Hetherington.
Robert McNamara, District 2. Incremental improvement is preferable to the paralysis of perfection. The proposed ordinances are not perfect, but are desperately needed to replace the void which exists now. Please approve these ordinances and validate the hard work over the past 2 years of the Medical Marijuana Task Force, the council committees, the city attorney's office, and the community planning groups. In addition, I would recommend that the appropriate city council committee docket this item in the next 9 to 12 months to evaluate whether the legislative intent of these ordinances is being carried out effectively and whether additional amendments may be needed to realize that intent. Thank you.
Tom Hetherington, followed by Barbara Gordon, followed by Thomas Hetherington, followed by Lane Triplett.